Right now, something you built is sitting in a folder, waiting for you to feel ready before you show it to anyone. You keep polishing it in private because showing it unfinished feels like showing your own weakness. That waiting is costing you more than the finished version ever will. You picture the clean website, the funded account, the real office, before you've sold a single thing. You've got the whole legitimate version mapped out in your head, and none of it exists yet because you're building the wardrobe before you walked on stage. Nobody buys from a plan sitting in your notes app. Decades ago, a guy graduated with a business idea nobody funded and no store to put it in, so he sold running shoes out of the trunk of his car at track meets. No storefront, no staff, no brand recognition, just a car full of boxes and runners who needed better shoes than what existed. That trunk was the whole company for years. You tell yourself the product needs one more feature, the resume needs one more line, the pitch needs one more slide before it can face a real person. That phrase, not ready yet, is doing a lot of quiet work to protect you from a no. It rarely means the thing is actually incomplete. You're holding out for the moment you'll have a real setup, a real title, real credibility before you let anyone see what you're doing. Meanwhile, the actual path forward looks small and embarrassing, so you keep circling it instead of starting. The store isn't coming first, it only shows up after the trunk. You spend your evenings reading about how other people made it, studying their timelines, comparing your chapter 1 to their chapter 20. That research feels like progress because it's related to the goal, but it's actually a very comfortable form of standing still. It lets you feel busy while nothing leaves your hands. In your head, a real business, a real skill, a real relationship should arrive already assembled, already impressive. So you sit on the rough draft version of everything, convinced that showing it half built will prove you were never good enough to begin with. Nothing you've ever used started out finished. Years after that trunk, one of the early shoe designers poured liquid rubber into his wife's waffle iron in the kitchen, trying to find a sole pattern that would clip a track better than anything on the market. It ruined the waffle iron and the kitchen smelled like burnt rubber for days. That ugly domestic kitchen table failure became the sole design that changed the whole company. You imagine that behind every product you admire, someone had a clear vision and executed it in order. Step 1, Step 2, Step 3. In reality, it was a waffle iron in a kitchen, a car trunk at a track meet, 100 versions that look nothing like the final thing. The clean version is only visible after the mess is over. You didn't invent this instinct to hide the rough draft. It comes from somewhere specific, and it's worth naming instead of just fighting it blind. Somewhere along the way, you were taught to hand in the clean copy, not the messy one, to only present the version with no crossed out lines. School graded the final draft, not the 30 ugly attempts that got you there. So you carried that rule into everything, believing the rough version isn't allowed to be seen. When your name is attached to something unfinished, it doesn't feel like the project is unfinished. It feels like you are. That's why the trunk feels humiliating instead of practical, because you fused who you are with how good the current version looks. Separate those two, and the trunk stops being a verdict on you. Every founder story you heard skips the trunk and starts at the headquarters. Every fitness transformation you've seen skips the first out of breath mile and starts at the finish line photo. You built your expectations on edited footage, so your own unedited footage feels like proof you're doing it wrong. Somewhere, someone made you feel small for trying something and not landing it cleanly. A laugh, a correction, an eye roll at the wrong moment. That memory is still running in the background, telling you that small and early equals embarrassing. It's an old alarm going off for a thread that isn't actually there anymore. Staying in the private, unfinished version feels safe because no one can reject what they haven't seen. But that safety is an illusion, because the thing you're protecting from judgment is also the thing that never gets to grow. Hiding it doesn't preserve it, it just slows its death. You were raised to believe you need the degree, the title, the funding, the platform before you're allowed to act like the thing you're becoming. But credibility in the real world is usually built backward, earned by the trunk full of shoes, not granted before it. Almost nobody starts with permission. They start anyway, and permission catches up. Knowing where the waiting comes from doesn't make it disappear. There's a specific kind of pain in the middle of this that almost nobody prepares you for, and it's worth walking through slowly. You picture the ugly early phase lasting a few weeks before things click into place. In reality, that guy sold shoes out of his car for years, not months, while still working a day job as an accountant just to survive. The uncomfortable phase is not a quick tunnel, it's a long stretch with no scenery. Nobody talks about how long you have to run two lives at once. The safe job that pays rent and the real thing that doesn't yet. It's exhausting in a specific way. Showing up tired to the thing that matters. Because the thing that pays came first that day. That split doesn't resolve fast. And you have to be able to survive the split. When it's a car trunk, people treat it like a car trunk. Friends will ask when you're going to get a real job, family will smile politely and change the subject, and you'll feel the gap between how big this is to you and how small it looks to them. That gap doesn't mean you're wrong, it means the proof hasn't shown up yet. That kitchen experiment didn't work on the first pour. It took multiple ruined batches, multiple wrong rubber mixtures, before the tread pattern that actually gripped a track showed up. Nobody shows you the failed pose, only the shoe that made it to shelves. So you assume your first failed attempt means you're on the wrong track entirely. The beginning has adrenaline, the ending has proof, but the middle has neither. That's where doubt hits hardest, months in, when the newness has worn off and the payoff hasn't arrived, and you have nothing but your own stubbornness to run on. Most people quit exactly there. Not at the start, not at the finish, right in that flat middle. Selling out of a trunk isn't a metaphor for scrappy. It's a description of actual poverty in the early runway, counting orders, chasing invoices, wondering if the bank will bounce a check before the next batch of shoes sells. That financial fear is real and it doesn't feel noble while you're inside it. It only looks noble in hindsight, from a stage you haven't reached yet. While you're improvising with a waffle iron, someone else appears to already have factories, funding, a finished product on real shelves. You compare your kitchen mess to their storefront and feel like you're losing a race you didn't know you'd already entered. You're not seeing their kitchen phase, you're only seeing what came after it. There's no ceremony for selling your fifth pair of shoes out of a car at a rainy track meet. No one posts about it, no one congratulates you, it just happens quietly, and then you drive to the next meet and do it again. The absence of applause will make you question if it's even working, when applause was never the signal to watch. At some point, you'll be tempted to fake the finished version early. Buy the office you can't afford yet. Print the business cards that oversell what you actually are. That shortcut usually backfires because the appearance of legitimacy without the trunk behind it collapses the first time it's tested. The slow, humiliating build is what makes the legitimacy real when it finally comes. The early shoes, the early rubber soles, the early designs were rough by any standard. And if you saw them now next to the polished product, you'd wince. That's not a flaw in the process, that's the process. If your early version doesn't embarrass future you a little, you probably weren't moving fast enough to learn anything. The people around you, watching from outside, can't tell the difference between someone building slowly and someone stuck. They'll offer advice to quit or pivot or get serious when what you actually need is just more laps around the same track. You have to be willing to look stalled to people who can't see the soul you're still designing. When the waffle sole finally worked, it didn't come with a fanfare. It was just one more attempt that happened to grip better than the last one. You often won't know which attempt was the breakthrough until you look back months later and realize that was the one that changed everything. That means you have to keep showing up to attempts that don't feel historic in the moment. None of that hard middle stretch means you're doing it wrong. It means you're doing it the only way it's ever actually been done, and there's a real shift available in how you carry that. Selling from a car isn't the embarrassing prequel to the real company, it is the real company, just early. Every stage you're in right now, however unfinished it looks, is the actual thing, not a placeholder for the actual thing. Stop treating your current chapter like a rough draft that doesn't count. A waffle iron sole that actually grips the track beats a beautiful design that only exists on paper. Your unfinished product that one real person has used and given feedback on is worth more than your polished plan that no one has touched yet. Function first, form later. Every single time. You don't become ready and then start proving yourself, you start. And the proving is what slowly manufactures the readiness. Every pair sold out of that trunk was a small piece of evidence, stacking quietly until it became a real business. You're not waiting to earn the right to start. Starting is how the right gets earned. A handful of actual runners buying actual shoes out of your trunk taught more than any market research report ever could have. Real, tiny, ugly data from real people beats imagined, large, polished data from nobody. Chase the small real thing over the big hypothetical one. Pouring rubber into a waffle iron looks ridiculous until it's the reason a shoe finally grips right. Whatever your version of that is, the janky prototype, the spreadsheet built at midnight, the awkward first cold email, it is not beneath the work you think you're meant to be doing. It is the work. You don't need the store before you're allowed to sell. You don't need the title before you're allowed to act like the thing. Let people see the trunk. The ones worth keeping around will respect that more than they'll respect a fake storefront. That flat, doubting stretch you'll hit isn't a sign to quit, it's just the part of the process where the payoff hasn't caught up to the effort yet. Expect it, name it when it shows up, and keep moving through it instead of treating it as proof you chose wrong. The day job plus the real thing, the tired nights, the split attention, none of that is the permanent shape of your life. Is the shape of this specific season, the trunk season, and seasons end when you keep working through them instead of abandoning them halfway. You don't get handed permission and then start. You start messy, you gather proof, and permission arrives late, built out of everything you already did without it. Stop waiting at the front door for someone to let you in. Walk in through the trunk. Take this and hold it against whatever you are actually sitting on right now, the thing you haven't shown anyone yet. Somewhere you've got a version of this, a business idea, a portfolio, a skill you're building, sitting unfinished because you're waiting to feel ready to show it. That thing is your trunk. It's supposed to look small right now. There's probably a rough, embarrassing experiment you know you should try. A version so unpolished you're scared someone will see it, but you keep avoiding it because it feels beneath the person you think you're becoming. That experiment is exactly where your breakthrough is hiding. Think about the people around you who see your current pace and quietly assume you've stalled. Some of that red is fair, but some of it is just them not being able to see the soul you're still shaping, and you don't owe them a finished product to justify your timeline. Somewhere you're overestimating how finished something needs to be before it can meet the real world. Ask yourself honestly whether the next version is genuinely missing something critical, or whether you're just scared of the moment someone sees it before it's perfect. Check if you're spending your energy on the appearance of being far along, the title, the setup, the image, instead of on the actual reps that would get you there. That energy is better spent doing the unglamorous version of the thing than dressing up a version that doesn't exist yet. This isn't only about business. Maybe it's a conversation you've been rehearsing into perfection instead of just having it messily. A friendship you're avoiding starting because you don't know exactly what to say. Say the rough version. The polished version doesn't exist until after you do. Picture what happens if you stop waiting for the clean version and just put the current embarrassing version into the world this week. Most of what you're afraid will happen. The judgment, the failure, is smaller and shorter than the cost of staying quiet another year. You know the thing. You've known it for a while. The only question left is whether you keep waiting for a store that isn't coming or whether you go put it in the car. Write down in one honest sentence the unfinished thing you're sitting on right now, the one you've been waiting to feel ready to show. Post it below. Saying it out loud is the first sale.